Hey, what's going on, y'all? Here I am back at it with another video. So, this is gonna be different. See, I never considered pedophiles as celebrities, but I would say this. This is gonna be, Jeffrey Epstein, filthy rich. So I'm gonna be, reacting to an episode of Jeffrey Epstein and a convicted sex offender who pretty much was rich, powerful, and also was freaking molesting a lot of underage girls, screwing them, and they were afraid to testify because the man had money. Anybody that's rich, they got ways to get out. And that's the thing I can't stand about freaking people that get away with stuff because they're rich. And no, and then the other person feels so messed up that they can't even, look at themselves in the mirror and they can't even like talk to anyone because the fact is that not murderer, I would say sex offender, pretty much molested a whole bunch of kids, mostly young women. So, that being said, this is going to be a little episode review. So, have a listen.
Yes, ma'am. Would you please state your full name? I'm Jeffrey Edward Epstein, and my residence address is 6100 Red Hook Boulevard in Virginia.
Do you maintain any other residences presently?
I have vacation homes in New Mexico, Palm Beach, New York, and Paris.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Yes.
What was the crime of which you were convicted?
Two counts: one, facilitating prostitution, and procuring money for prostitution.
Did you in fact commit those acts?
I'm going to invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
How many times have you solicited a minor for prostitution?
Same answer.
How many times have you solicited a minor for prostitution in the state of Florida?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited a minor for prostitution in the Virgin Islands?
Same answer.
That is, you are invoking your Fifth Amendment.
Yes, right. Yes, Mr. Cole.
Have you ever solicited for prostitution in New York?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited for prostitution in New Mexico?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited for prostitution in Paris?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited a minor for prostitution anywhere at any time?
Again, women certainly right.
Did you ever, we're going to go first, so you are terminating the delegation at this time?
I'm Vicky Ward. I'm an investigative journalist. I wrote a story about Jeffrey Epstein for Vanity Fair back in 2003. I heard about Jeffrey Epstein actually long before I was asked to write about him because he was known as this sort of Gatsby-like figure of mystery in New York. He was this single guy, very wealthy, very good looking, and people knew that he had made a lot of money, but they didn't know how. He claimed to be the money manager for the uber rich. People knew that he hung out with a lot of famous people. Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, a lot of famous academics, the lawyer Alan Dershowitz, and that he was always surrounded by very beautiful, often very young women.
You see? Sick, man. That's the thing about perverts. I'm not saying I'm not saying all men are perverts. I'm just saying that men that look dirty and that gay guy got that obsession with young women, then you definitely know in their mindset, they got a sick mindset. And it gets deeper than that. It gets deeper than that.
I knew Ghislaine Maxwell, his then supposed girlfriend. She was Oxford educated, very witty, very funny. She was a great connector for Jeffrey. Braden Carter, who was then the editor of Vanity Fair, said to me, I've been hearing about this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, for years, but no one knows anything about him. And so he gave me the story. It was a society piece. It wasn't supposed to be anything more than that. But right away, there was a red flag. One of my sources said, I know a woman who had a very unpleasant experience working with Jeffrey, and even worse, her youngest sister was abused by him when she was underage. Maybe they will talk to you. And obviously this took what had primarily been a business investigation in a whole different direction.
Okay.
I began painting my senior year of college. I just dedicated myself to painting constantly. I looked at it like I was an Olympic athlete and I was just working all the time, training. And then I was just giving myself the fresh mind every time to the canvas. This is my graduate school, the New York Academy of Arts. I graduated in 1995, and the night of our graduation, actually, you usually have an art show, and Eileen Guggenheim used to be the dean of
Yeah, I'll be right back.
students, and she would
I'll
run
let
it.
this play, so I'll be right back.
At the show, I decided to enter a triptych. So that's 3 paintings, and it was the Alice in Wonderland series. The show is phenomenal for me. All 3 of my paintings sold right away. The first painting I sold for $14,000, and then the other 2 for $12,000 a piece. And I was really, obviously, excited. But Eileen then walked over to me, and Eileen's literally like twisting my arm. And she says, this couple right here is who's gonna buy your art. Do you hear me? And I said, well, I've already sold it. And she said, that's too bad. You're gonna tell them that it's not sold and you're selling to this couple. They're very important benefactors of the Academy. And Eileen says, this is Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, my dearest friends. And they're delighted and you will be selling to them and they will get a discount. And so I got $6,000 instead of $12,000 that night. And Jeffrey Epstein said, don't worry, we'll make it work for you. Don't worry. I didn't see or hear from Jeffrey for a couple months. And one day the phone rang and he said, I have a great job for you. Jeffrey had just acquired this mansion on 71st Street. He told me, this is your new job. You're going to be managing the door. And you're going to be managing the people coming and going, the decorators, the visitors. One day, Jeffrey Epstein said, I would like to know, how many siblings you have. And I described that I had 2 sisters. And I told him that my sister Annie is very intelligent and has hopes and dreams for a career, probably an Ivy League. I was 16 years old, and it was my junior year in high school. Maria was living in Manhattan and had told us that she'd gotten a great job, working for this man, Jeffrey Epstein, and that he, might be interested in helping me in some way. He had proposed it would be helpful for me to go on some kind of international trip to Thailand and Vietnam in order to build up my resume and to be more appealing for a competitive school. He agreed that he would pay for that trip. At the time, it seemed very expensive, so I was just feeling really grateful for that. The trip was supposed to be that summer in July, and so he suggested that I come out to meet him and Gillian Maxwell at their ranch in New Mexico. My mom's understanding of what that trip would be was a chance for me to meet some other students who would also be going on similar trips. But when I got there, I realized I was the only one there staying with them. They showed me around the property. It was part of building up this sense of look at who I am, look at all that I have, be impressed by me. Gillian was very interested in whether I had ever had a massage before, like a professional massage, and I have not. So it was really presented as you're so lucky that you get to do this, to get this massage. She told me to undress, and there was a table there with a sheet on it. A portion of it was just pretty typical, but there was a time when she had me lay on my back, and she, pulled the sheet down so that my breasts were exposed. Because of the layout of the house and the doors that were open, I knew that Epstein could see me. I think the way that she rubbed my chest in the massage also was inappropriate. The scariest moment of the weekend was when he came into my bedroom in the morning and said that he would like to cuddle. He crawled into bed with me and, was touching me. And I don't remember how long that lasted because I was sort of checking out a bit. But I remember making an excuse, I needed to go to the bathroom, got out of bed and went into the bathroom and then shut the door and was, very scared of what was going on. And afterwards, I just avoided it. I didn't tell my closest friends, and I didn't tell Maria and my family, and I just thought, I'm going to focus on this trip this summer. And I went to Thailand and Vietnam.
Annie was on this program in Thailand, and I received a call from Jeffrey saying that we want to help you with your career. So I was asked to go do an artist in residency. I was to go to Ohio, and I would be living in this 26,000 square foot home behind Les Wexner's house. When I asked Jeffrey who Les Wexner was, he said he's my client and my very good friend who happens to be a billionaire, and he would do anything for me. So I drove a Penske truck to Ohio because I took all of my art supplies. I set up shop and I started painting. These paintings were paintings about puberty, girls partially nude, voyeuristic kind of private moments, but not sexual. My process is that I take photographs and I work from them. And I was using my 2 sisters as the models. So Jeffrey and Gillian came to visit one day. That night, Gillian came and got me and said, Jeffrey would like to have his feet rubbed. And my stomach sank. I felt like, oh gosh, I don't want them to think I'm not grateful, but this is so inappropriate, And so I rubbed his feet for a little while.
and he said, "Come up here." Then he patted over here for me to sit next to him, and Ghislaine sat down on the other side of me. Jeffrey immediately was doing this. Like, it was really mechanical and bizarre. And Ghislaine then was doing this on me. And then they were touching me in different ways on my chest. It didn't feel right at all. And I didn't like it. I kind of had like, some tears. And she goes, "Shh, it's gonna be okay." And she was like really with her other hand, like rubbing on my hand, telling me that it was gonna be okay. I had escaped my body at that point. I wasn't really in that moment at all. And at some point, I was able to like catapult my body out of that bed. I went to my room and I barricaded my door. I put a piece of furniture against it, just kind of huddled up in that room until Jeffrey and Ghislaine left that morning. When I woke up, I went and checked to see if my photographs of my sisters were there, and realized 3 photographs had been stolen. And I was freaking out. So I called Annie, my sister, confronted me about whether anything had happened to me when I was at the ranch. I told her things that had made me really uncomfortable had happened, but I really don't want to talk about it. I said, "Listen, you're never going to have to deal with them again. Do not worry. I'm so sorry you were exposed to this." It was just a very uncomfortable feeling to know that he had these photos of us. And in particular, of my younger sister, because she was just 12 when those photos were taken. And it was just so, it was just upsetting to know that he had those photos and to never know what happened to them or how he was using them. He could be using them to sexually please himself. So the next day, Jeffrey called me and he tried to pretend like it was a really fun time he'd had the night before. And he tried to kind of play it off like that. And I said that wasn't fun for me. And then he offered to give me basically what I wanted, to not make a stink about everything. Just, what do you want? Like, how much money do you want? What can I do for you? And I didn't say anything. I hung up on him. When I got back to New York City, I told the NYPD everything that had happened. I told them I'd been assaulted, and they said it's just not in our jurisdiction. We have nothing to do with this. These things happen in Ohio, New Mexico. You're going to have to call the FBI. When I called the FBI, I laid it out very specifically. I said, I'm reporting these people, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. I told them everything. And I could tell that he believed me. So I really had believed that he was going to take care of this. And then we just actually did not hear back. Because these sisters had been ignored for so long, they were very, very frightened of going on the record, speaking up about what Jeffrey would do to them. Part of them, understandably, just thought they could never fight against a man of his power. We proceed very reluctantly after a family decision that we're going to do this thing. We're going to talk about this. I spoke to the youngest sister who was molested by him and lived in fear. So after we had presented our story to Vicky, then Vanity Fair had to take this account to Epstein to essentially fact check it and get his perspective and his side of things. And when they did that, he came back with his own story, which was we were in fact women that were infatuated with him. And that's what this was coming out of. It was, revenge for that being unrequited.
He would say, "Well, Vicky, if I don't like this piece, it's going to be bad for you and your family." And I was newly pregnant with twins. He said, "Where are you giving birth?" He followed that up with, "I know all the doctors in all the hospitals, so it doesn't matter if you don't tell me, I'll find out. If I don't like this piece, I'm going to have a witch doctor place a curse on your unborn children." he was beginning to spook me out, and these are just conversations. So I could only imagine how the women must have felt. I got a phone call from Graydon. He was pretty spooked because he found a severed cat's head in his garden. He also found a bullet on his doorstep. And then suddenly I was told by my editor that the girls were being taken out of the story. I was horrified. I said, why? They've been so brave. They've laid so much on the line. Why? And the message came back, well, he's obviously sensitive about the girls. That's the sore point. I never forget Graydon Carr saying to me, you know, I believe Jeffrey Epstein.
I remember buying the copy of Vanity Fair and seeing this spread, you know, the talented Mr. Epstein, and it said nothing about any of his interest in girls.
I think that Vanity Fair basically got bought off by Jeffrey. You know, the excuse was, well, it's a business story. It was a business story, but just like life, the story was more complicated, far more complicated. I cried in public. You know, so much work, so much bravery, and for what?
It seemed there was more evidence of the fact that he was powerful and he could fix whatever thing came up.
Jeffrey Epstein is the ultimate story of the abuse of power and money. But of course, what none of us knew was that the girls who I'd spoken to were only the tip of the iceberg. And it actually got even worse in Florida.
Jeffrey Epstein bought his Palm Beach mansion in 1990. Epstein was new money. He didn't have generations of growing up there, sailing in the Intercoastal Waterway, but he had tons of new money. And if you have enough money, you can buy your way into any society.
Okay,
There are things that have
I'm
been
back.
proven
I'm back.
as a kid. Some of the protectiveness, some of the clannishness. It's definitely a very insular world. There is almost a hermetic seal around it. It's not just an extremely wealthy zip code, it's an island. And I think that it almost has a psychological effect on the very, very wealthy people who move there or who have grown up there or whose fathers or grandfathers bought estates there, because there's a sense of security and safety and privacy, and they like it that way.
Epstein and I essentially were neighbors. And why would Jeffrey Epstein come here? Here it is. You're on the ocean. It's quiet and secluded. I came down here in 2007, and back then, there was very little known about Jeffrey Epstein. What people knew about him was that he was stunningly rich. The guy was living a life that most people dream about. He had a $15 to $20 million house in Palm Beach. He had one of the largest townhouses in New York City, a massive apartment in Paris, his own private island in the Caribbean, a sprawling ranch in New Mexico, a helicopter, 2 airplanes, one a 727. That's the commercial side of the airport there, where all the jet Dales lands. But the west side of the airport is where the private jets are. That's where Jeffrey parked his jets. I was reporting for 25 years. I also lived over in Palm Beach.
covered the Epstein case extensively. This guy was a bit of a ghost down there. Nobody really saw him. Nobody knew him. In the 80s, he hit it out of the ballpark. A lot of powerful men. White trusted him to handle his money. Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. They were both wealthy guys from New York, and they both ended up living a mile apart along Billionaires Road in Palm Beach. They knew each other. Epstein frequented Mar-a-Lago for a time. There's now a widely circulated quote from Donald Trump, which he probably would like to reel back in. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He can say he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are the younger side.
Palm Beach is a very small town. It's almost impossible to see regularly moving in that world and not hearing rumors about Epstein and not being aware of something odd going on at Jeff's place. I'm Michael Ryder. I've been here 38 years on the Palm Beach Police Department for 28, and I was police chief of Palm Beach from 2001 through 2005. I first met Jeffrey Epstein somewhere around 2001. Epstein visited me in my office to talk about making a donation of equipment to the police department, which was nearly $100,000. It was a brief visit. It was just a little bit of chit chat. My impression was it's just a wealthy, very private guy. Nearly 2 years later, we received reports from his neighbors that there was a large number of young women going to and from his residence. We thought that suspicious. We sent personnel to stop them and interview them. They were all adults, therefore we talked to them, and they said that they were simply doing office work for Mr. Epstein. Since they were all adults, there didn't seem to be any further police interest. And in 2005, the parent of a young girl called the police station.
Hi, I'm good. I've been trying to call it, so I apologize. I don't know exactly what for. It's okay. It was nice to get heard because bring on the show with one of my stepdaughters. Why are you at school? So guys would have fights and we spent over $200 on her. So after asking what was going on, I found out that I ended up thinking that they went to talk to the grandma's house and they started out by giving the gentleman a massage. They just go to them if he likes them, if he thinks that they're pretty enough to smile. So I was just like, said there was an investigation or a whole world. I just went, well, this is the first option I noticed. Okay, what I will do is some more information for your special people to come in to provide some care.
One of the juvenile reports that they have been a victim of a sex crime to the police department, we immediately take that very serious. The parent was asked to bring the victim to the police station. The detective conducted an interview immediately upon that victim's report to us, which we found very credible. We launched an investigation. The very first victim was about 14 years old at that time. We were able from the interview to figure out exactly where the house was. From the description the victim provided, it was clear he was Mr. Epstein. The case was assigned to our special investigations unit, partly because of the nature of the crime, and partly because Mr. Epstein was a powerful, influential person. Joe Carey was the lead investigator in the case. Unfortunately, Joe Carey passed away a few years ago. At the time, he believed there were other victims, so he began contacting them and listening to their stories.
I appreciate you coming down and talking to me. You're not in any trouble this way. Right now. How did you meet Mr. Epstein? About 2 years ago.
Yeah.
First round.
Yeah.
You were 17 then? What is it that you were told you would have to do?
Give you a massage.
During the massage, ask you to your pants.
Every victim told essentially the same story. They thought that they would get a massage. That's what most of them were told. That's why I moved them there for a small amount of money.
What else happened?
We tell a lot of cleaning himself. I was very uncomfortable. Like, I wanted to leave right when I got there.
Our biggest concern was that the victimization not to continue. That's why we started surveillance right away. We surveilled the airport, the house, and we found additional victims. One victim would tell us about others, those others would tell us about others, and it began to multiply geometrically.
First of all, I know it's hard. Deep breath.
Okay. I was unaware that I was going to be homeless for that 2 minutes. I thought I was going to die.
Did you have
After 2 or 3 months, we feared that this involved a really large number of victims.
I found the calendar from December 2004, the month that I met Jeffrey Epstein. I wrote down my first party that I'd ever been to, talked to a boy till 3 o'clock in the morning, and then right before Christmas, that's the weekend that everything changed in my entire life.
I know where talking exactly how you introduced yourself and talking about Jeffrey.
My friend told me in class that he could find a way of making money for Christmas. Didn't even know what he was talking about, but I was like,
I was a good kid. I always thought that my life was just ordinary. I had 7 kids in my family. I was really good in school. I had a lot of friends. In cheerleading, I got the Spirit Award. Just a normal teenage girl. One day, this girl wrote me a note in class that said, "Do you want to make some extra money massaging old guys?" And I was like, okay, that seems weird, but okay.
go to the old friend's house and massage him for 5 minutes and you get $200.
How old are you?
16.
We're driving probably like a good 45-minute ride. We pulled in to the big, expensive-looking mansion. Before we got out of the car, she said, "Okay, so if anybody asks, you're over the age of 18, but I don't think anybody's gonna ask, just if they do." I was only there for like maybe a minute or two, and then he walked in. He laid down on his stomach. He said, "Okay, there's some lotions over there if you wanted to start massaging my feet and my legs." He flipped over and he was talking to me about the way that I looked. He was telling me how beautiful I was.
Pardon me for pausing this. I just saw the Wikipedia about this man. So let me say it right here. Jeffrey Edward Epstein. Born January 20, 1953. Died August 10th, 2019. Damn, they lived 2 years ago, like really 32 years. An American financer and a convicted sex offender, which I'm pretty much watching right now. Epstein was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York City. Brooklyn, New York. I can tell you that this man was pretty much some type of freaking creepy old white dudes that pretty much had opportunities to own a lot of buildings and kick a lot of people out. And the fact of the matter is that since he was rich, he had the power to do that. Anywho, began his professional life by teaching at the Dalton School in Manhattan, despite lacking a college degree. After his dismissal from the school, he entered the banking and finance sector, working at Bear Stearns, a various roles. He eventually started his own firm, Epstein, developed a elite social circle, and procured many women children. He some of his associates then sexually abused them. You see? And this is I think this is what he looks like. Hold on. Can I switch this? Switch it. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is what he looks like. This man definitely looks like he definitely looks like a pedophile. He definitely fits the profile being a pedophile. But either way, it's a long Wikipedia. I'm not gonna read too much, but I'm just gonna focus on the video. So continue on.
I never thought I was the pretty girl in high school. I had braces, and for somebody to be pointing the spotlight at me, it was like, okay, he's giving me compliments. I never thought of myself that way. And then he kind of was like grabbing my hip and kind of like maneuvering it so that he could look at me. He was telling me to take off my shirt and pants. He's like, you can get down into your underwear. You know, you start thinking, okay, so if I try to leave or be like, no, we're not going to do this, you know, how would you leave? Like, is there a gun hidden somewhere like he was going to pull out? As a young girl, you just do, because he's an adult, you just do what someone asks you to do.
And then he would scratch my side when he would dust himself off with his own laugh. He the part of letting me stand there.
And that was where I started freaking out completely. I was like, okay, like, can we just get this over with? This is just so unreal. This is not happening. He just looked like a scary sicko in my mind. Like, he just looked like I just still have the vision of his face.
I was not doing I said, I just well, no, I do that. And I really have to get so good.
I told you before, I told you now, like it was wrong. I want to make sure you're on that. Okay.
When he was done, he wrapped himself up in a towel and he said, there's 200 for you. I would really like to see you again. And I was like, okay. In the back of my mind, I was like, I am not ever coming back here ever again. And I went downstairs and I felt so used. I felt so used, like I was just like this dirty person.
You see? And that's the problem with all these freaking creepy ass people, especially being around. It's like I see why men like that you like younger women, because they look at them for they're more prettier, they're more attractive, more, and they see something in that young woman. They can't get a woman their age because they know that it's not the same for them, right? So they figure going with a woman that's younger is great, right? It's disgusting. No wonder. And some of these younger women, they have older men as their husband and boyfriends, and I'm thinking to myself, ain't none of my business, but I'm just like, okay, what do y'all see in each other that's like exceptional. Because I get it. You're grown, he's grown, but you gotta understand what their mentality and personality is. You just can't just date somebody because of how the way they are, and they like if they treat you fine, if they treat you well, that's acceptable because they're gentlemen. They're being what they are as a man and treating a woman faithfully and correct. When they start, getting a little bit too like controlling and too a little bit like not manipulative, like just try to gain more out of that woman and out of that, like concept of her, then that's an issue. But for men like these, they're sick in their head.
Before Epstein, I was. I was. I was.
And I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I blame those women too. It's like y'all gotta know what kind of men y'all are gonna be around because if you look at them type of men, if you know what kind of a mindset they got, then don't be around them. Stay away from them. That's all I have to say on that term.
The way I saw myself a long time ago was like this flower. A flower that was like opening up. And afterwards, it was like somebody just picked up that flower, plucked it from its roots, and stomped on it and smashed it.
Is 5:45 p.m.
Many of the girls were brought across the bridge from the mainland, which is West Palm Beach. And it's a whole different world when they cross the bridges. Parts of West Palm Beach are like a lot of other communities along the Gold Coast, where it's working class. It's not necessarily high end at all. It's a real world. Think what it must have been like to come from modest means, in some cases broken homes, troubled homes. Palm Beach is like Oz. If you live in West Palm, I mean, it's just not a world you experience.
My name is Shauna Rivera.
You said West Palm Beach, Florida. I've been in Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville, Daytona Beach. I don't know if I've been to Palm Beach or West Palm Beach, but if that's the case, then that side of Florida got a lot of they got like rich people out there. They got a lot of places out there that are like worth like I would say like grands. So you got money like that, you living down in them type of Palm Sunny Beach areas, and hey, you very much living a great life. But if you got a mind of a sick pervert, then I don't care all about none of that stuff.
This is the house that I grew up in. This is where usually we would sit out here. We had a big hammock on the patio. This room was my room. The time that I first met Jeff, my girlfriend came over here to take me with her to Jeff's, right? Like right after this street here, there's a trailer park. There's a canal and then there's a trailer park. And so she walked over here and convinced me to go with her. I didn't have a good childhood. I was a runaway for 2 years.
My mom used drugs pretty heavily most of my life. My dad went to prison when I was 3. And when I was 10, my dad got out of prison. At some point, my dad had a girlfriend who had some kids, and the kids had clearly been abused prior to this. And I would say it was like a week or so after my 12th birthday, my dad and his girlfriend beat her son, her 8-year-old son, to death.
Oh, dang. You see, that's why when I quote said that this generation of kids are gonna get raised so bad. And technically, if anyone views my channel and they watch this video and they think that I'm like bashing, I'm not bashing. I'm just saying my opinion. Okay, and if you could ask, look how many of these kids are warped up on drugs, freaking getting pregnant at a young early age, and being disruptive, like going to juvie and like freaking being like so messed up in the head because of the way of their childhood of the experience. And you can see why they act the way they act. But dang, man, that girl went through a freaking tough ass life. Her mom was a drug addict. Her father was a convicted felon. Got out, freaking have kids. And technically, due to his due to his life in prison, he still has that freaking you know, like I can't say aggression, like aggressive motive. Like he experienced a lot in prison, and him coming home doesn't feel right to him. Like it's like this when you're like coming home from the military or coming home from prison, and you feel different, then you know that you have experienced a traumatic some events, especially if you're like incarcerated or deployed somewhere. But I would say, dang, that young girl lived a difficult life, especially seeing that your father is an ex-convict. Him coming home to be with the family, but getting a girl, and then dealing with kids when he's an unfit parent, which he has a criminal record. And what they do, beat the kid. I don't like that. I don't like when freaking adults do that to kids. I don't like abuse, my dude. Abuse right there is definitely not on my watch. Because to me, I would definitely beat that guy to death if I had to, and probably I would go to jail for that. But no, I don't wish death on nobody. I don't threaten nobody. I'm just saying in general, like abuse to me is personal, especially to kids. Mm-mm.
In front of me. And so I ran away from home. I lived in like shelter homes. Finally, my grandma was able to get custody of me.
That was
I
lucky.
was 14 years old when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
14. Oh. But technically, that's your own fault.
My girlfriend, she's like, Shauna, I'm going to this guy's house. I can't go by myself. I just can't do it. I just need you to come with me. I was just like, all right, fine. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just went along with it. Once you get over the bridge into Palm Beach, you see yachts and all these huge mansions. This is like
Yeah, this is like rich people town right here, West Palm Beach.
We walk into the back and there's this girl. She's young with an accent. I don't know her. She's familiar with my friend. Hi. We walk into this room and this dude walked in. I remember thinking he was kind of rude. He says, oh, hey, hi. He's like on the phone and he like lays down. So then my girlfriend tells me we're just going to give him a massage. And she said, oh, well, we have to take our clothes off. And I'm like, I have to take my clothes off? And she says, yeah, we both have to take our clothes off, all of them. So you have me and my 14-year-old girlfriend totally naked, and I'm giving this old man a massage.
Let me just pause it. It gets more and more creepier the further I watch this video. No, this little series. It gets creepier and creepier. Like young girls just going to an older man's house just to get some arouse, some money. And then you have to do something for him. He'll like, nah. You see, that's why most of those girls, that girl is messed up because she was a runaway. She had a terrible childhood, and the fact is that that man was able to use a broken down female like her to get what he figured it was necessary. So I can see why that man was convicted. But still, if y'all knew that this man was a creep, why would you still go near him though? So I blame them that they accidentally waited so long to accuse the man. I can't say accuse, but to get to I would say like file a report. But the man's rich, so that will take some time if I do another reaction to this video. So continue on.
But then my girlfriend says, well, I'm gonna go. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing leaving me here? Like, why? I couldn't believe she was walking out of there. Then this guy, he asked me how old I was. And
That's
I
what you say. Don't
remember
trust
telling
nobody.
him that I was 15 years old. And I was
She literally left
actually
that
15 years old.
girl there to just
That
be.
didn't scare him. It was kind of like, oh, okay, like you're 15. Then he turned over and he wanted me to rub the lotion that we were using like all over his chest. And he's told me to just grab his nipples and squeeze and pinch as hard as I could. And I just remember standing there and just being like, what is going on? Like, this is so weird. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm 14 years old. I'm a virgin. It just went on like that for a couple of minutes and he finished. And there was money sitting there. He told me to go ahead and pick up the money. So I just got dressed and I walked out and left. I was so embarrassed. I didn't know how to say, like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't know how long it was after the first time I had gone over there, but I one day got a phone call at my house. They called me a cab to take me to Jeff's. There was no explanation. There was just take the cab to Jeff's. I assumed if I went back, I would get more money.
You see, that's
I
why.
didn't have any money.
You see, that's why. That's why he used you, because he knew that you were a broken down young girl who had a terrible childhood, and technically he figured that he would use you. So therefore, you wanted some money because the fact is you knew that he was rich. No, her friend knew that he was rich, so she figured getting her involved was the best way. That's why. I'm sorry, but I would rather work my ass, find a way to get a job and work my ass off than freaking do some dirty stuff with somebody. Nah. I may have a terrible childhood, but still, I ain't gonna be being no freaking bitech to nobody. I don't care how rich they are. You ain't gonna get me to freaking rub this all over or do this. Nope. It's already. If it was with a female, like a good female, I wouldn't mind. But if it's some like dirty female that got that mind obsession of me, and it's like, nope. Like, I may be young, but I know my morals and values. I ain't gonna be freaking being no broken down piece of freaking rotten poor soul to some dirty person. The amount of money they got, I don't care.
I didn't have a family like that. I just didn't know how to handle it, So I think I kind of went into this kind of like pilot mode kind of situation where I just tried to like get through it and just go home. I couldn't say this isn't right. I couldn't say this isn't normal. I couldn't say like this is a sick man. And it was probably for like 3 or 4 years I continued to go.
I'm an educational psychologist and mental health counselor. I've worked with many victims of sexual trauma, and the first thought that I had when reading about the Jeffrey Epstein case is that he targeted girls that were so vulnerable.
Exactly.
And this is something that most sexual predators do.
Exactly what she said, because that's the thing when you're vulnerable and you know that the fact is that you're weak, broken down, and you know those type of men are gonna make a fool out of you. And that's the thing I pretty much can't stand is then when technically it's like this. If you're like troubled, right? You had a terrible childhood. Your mom pretty much was, I can't say weak. She was struggling. Pretty much was going through a lot. And she figured turning her attention with stuff like drugs would work. And the father, he can't handle the child that he brought in the world. He wasn't tough enough. So what did he do? He just dips on her. Next thing you know, he's mad that he made a mistake, so he turns his anger on the child. When the child grows up, you can see the troubleness in their eyes. But then when they freaking dirty perverts, like what they say, predators, when they see weak, vulnerable females, not just females, like boys too, men too, they know it's their right move to strike. Because if I were to say that if I was that type of person, that my behind is already messed up. Still, man. And sometimes that's actually why he is the way he is. Because he knew targeting those vulnerable women would be an upper hand for him. But when they cry rape or cry, then he gets off because he has ways to pay off, the fees and the, system. Of course, he's gonna get off. It's gonna take a lot more than freaking money to words to put that man like that in the prison.
The first step in the grooming process is spotting a vulnerable victim, someone who is financially disadvantaged or that already have some sexual trauma in their past. Sexual predators like Jeffrey Epstein have an eye for picking out someone who is in need of something, and they identify that need and then they exploit it.
Exactly.
When you're pairing a teenage girl with a brilliant, narcissistic billionaire, their adolescent brain was not equipped to understand or react to what was happening.
Exactly. So because of that, it's the reason why that man overpowered them.
We were
He
frustrated.
knew they were weak.
that while
He knew they were
some
vulnerable, so
were
he
cooperative,
knew.
Most of the victims did not want to prosecute for fear of Jeffrey Epstein. They knew that Mr. Epstein was a powerful, influential, very wealthy person. So they were
Exactly.
very reluctant.
Why else
And so
would they
decided to
go
talk
to
to
him
some of his employees
for money? He knew.
Good morning, Mr. Leslie.
Yes, speaking.
Hi, this is Detective Joe Carey with Palm Beach Police. I am investigating a case against a former employer of yours, Jeffrey Epstein.
You know, this is something that I really would not like to be involved in. I'm not involved with.
I understand that, but you may hold some information which would assist me in this case.
But I don't want to get in trouble, or I don't want to get sued by this drifting or by this company.
You are Alfredo Rodriguez.
Yes, that's me.
Okay. I just wanted to touch base with a case that I'm investigating involving Mr. Epstein.
Okay.
My main concern, obviously, is the girls that come over to work for him.
Okay.
What can you tell me about that?
He has a lot of tattoos, you know. He has a list of favorite female personnel to give him massage, you know, so he gets massage in the morning, massage in the afternoon. They were very private, you know, so I didn't know what might be anything, you know, because behind closed doors. It was my job to keep everything discreet, you know, so.
Would you say these girls were young?
You put them as sponsor.
Every part of this case was about his employees that want to cooperate. So we went through the trash at his home. In one case, we found the school report card for one of the victims. In another case, we learned that he sent a messenger to the school to provide flowers to the victim who had been part of a performance there.
West Palm Beach has dozens of high schools and middle schools, thousands and thousands of kids, some private schools out there. And all these schools became a hunting ground for this predator.
I think at 16, 17, when you're in high school, I think we're all vulnerable. This is Royal Palm Beach High School. This is where I went to high school. Not the happiest moment in my life.
My name is Haley Rawson, and I was 16 when I met Jeffrey Epstein. Growing up in West Palm Beach, I had a big family, lots of cousins. I had 2 sisters. My dad was a police officer. My mom worked in banking. I love horses. I started riding when I was 11. A couple years later, I got competitive. This was probably the most happy time of my life. But I had gone through a traumatic experience before I met Jeffrey Epstein. This summer, before I turned 16, I was raped. It was my first experience with a man. He was 21.
Oh.
And I just closed up. I started using drugs. I was drinking all the time, smoking weed. I just kind of wanted to just vanish, just disappear. The girl that introduced me to Jeffrey Epstein went to high school with me. She said, I know this guy, and he would give me $200 just to give him a massage. And my first immediate reaction or thought that came to my mind was, this is my ticket out of West Palm. This is my way out. We drove to Palm Beach Island. And we actually walked in. It wasn't the front door. It was almost like the side door that led into the kitchen. I remember we walked up a flight of stairs that kind of curved. And the first thing that I noticed, because it was so distracting, was the wall art. A lot of nudity, naked statues, naked pictures.
This
It made
guy's
me
a
feel
pervert.
uncomfortable. And then I saw like a photograph of kids.
He kept those? Oh man, that man's sick.
The massage began as a massage. Then he turned over. He was naked on the table. And I just remember feeling really scared. Just bad emotions.
They thought you,
Yeah. Inappropriately.
does he use his hand? Does he
He uses his hand and I guess like a vibrator. But I refused to do that. He tried to touch me below the belt. I declined. I told him I didn't feel comfortable. No, it's not going to happen. At that moment, he was offering me, okay, well, this isn't going to happen. So just if you have any friends, if you bring them to me, I'll give you $200.
just a random girl? And the girl that was going knew that she would have to massage it.
She knew everything.
How long have you been working for?
I've been working for a year.
Man, it. You know what? I'm just gonna just say my thoughts until the end of this video. So
I probably recruited maybe 24 girls. But those girls brought other girls too.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a train.
Who else was underage?
Under 18. All of them. I would recruit girls that were friends. I would just casually bring it up and we would drive together to his house. I would take him to the room and then I would walk out. Sometimes I would wait out by the pool. When the girls would leave, Jeffrey would come outside to pay me. He would say, how are you? How is everything? How's your family? He wanted you to think he was a friend and that he cared.
All right, talk about bullshit a little bit.
At this point, you've clearly implicated yourself in a crime. Okay, you're taking girls to somebody's house for the purpose of prostitution. More importantly, more significantly, one of those girls was 14 at the time. Okay, now that's a pretty significant second-degree felony.
I remember them being really tough on me, and I think at one point I started crying. And I remember feeling really scared, and they treated me like I was his right-hand man. But what about the girl that recruited me? What happened to her? What about the girl that recruited the girl that recruited me? I feel like I've been putting the blame on myself for so long, bashing myself and just being hard on myself. But I shouldn't feel guilty about it because I was 16 and he's the adult and he should not make me feel guilty. I've never ever come forward like this. It just brings up so many emotions.
The girls that are recruiting the other girls are definitely victims of Jeffrey Epstein. They were manipulated in a unique way. They were made to feel special, and they were also offered opportunities that could get them out of their life circumstances. And the added bonus that they didn't have to do anything sexual with this middle-aged man. This is how Jeffrey Epstein created a sexual pyramid scheme.
After months of our investigation, we realized that this was a way of life for Mr. Epstein. And I believe he felt he would never be caught. And so it was very important for us to get inside of Mr. Epstein's home because we wanted to see if there was additional evidence and to validate the information given to us by the witnesses. But we had to be very careful. We did not want to reveal to Mr. Epstein that he was being investigated until we had an airtight case. Finally, 7 months into the case, we felt as though that was the time to execute the search warrant.
This is a complete description of the residence desired to be searched, including the privilege attached thereof. I will leave a list of what items were taken.
We were extremely surprised at what we found inside Epstein's house.
That's it. Galaxy. All right. Well, that was the first episode. Oops, that was the first episode. That was the first episode to Jeffrey Epstein, and I did say I'll give my thoughts. Well, this is the thing, though. This is the problem with society and with people in general. And it's not just people. I'm talking about young people. This technically, all these girls that were accusing this man, Jeffrey Epstein, and the one thing I disagree is that they cried rape, where like their friends knew that the man was rich. They knew that he had a really sick mind. So I think that friend wanted to get somebody else to go to his house and do all those things for him. He'll bribe him with $200. Really? But the thing is, though, that girl Haley, she said something like, they were interrogating me. They treated me like I was his right-hand man. Well, you recruited, you brought more girls to his crib, and you definitely knew that the man was sick, so you know he was rich too. And you still wanted those girls to come to his house and give him those special little dirty treatments, right? So I blame her. That's why they were interrogating you. Technically, you are freaking like giving them away, and it's like prostitution. What do you expect? You think they were going easy on you? No, you recruited them. You brought them there. So obviously they're going to treat you like you're some type of criminal because you definitely did commit some felonies. So I want to hear that freaking sob story that she had. I mean, she pretty much, like she said, she was raped by a 20-year-old. Most of the time drinking, smoking, doing all that. And then she saw a man that was rich, very wealthy, and had a lot of money. She knew that if that's her way of trying to get out, then she probably had no choice. But everyone has a choice. Like I said, this was just the first episode. I mean, I don't know if I'm doing another one, but if I do, I'll do it. But still, this episode right here was kind of just got a little bit too overrated and a little bit disturbing. But at the end of the day, Jeffrey Epstein has been like dead for 2 years. So You can't hurt nobody more. So there you have it. That was the first episode of Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich. So anyone that views this, so let me know what you think. And this is me signing off, and I'll come back on next time. So peace out.